There comes a moment in every election when a choice has to be made, and we're approaching that time of choice in this election. And I want to set out to you today how I see that choice. It's not a choice between old Labour and new Labour. It's not a choice between the core vote and Middle England. It's a choice about whether we have the courage to change. Whether we have the courage to change as a political party after one election defeat rather than after 4 defeats, as we did after 1992. And we need change ideologically because we lost our way as a political party and people lost a sense of who we were and what we stood for, and we got trapped in old certainties. We need change electorally because the electoral map of Britain has changed, and we need to recognise the way in which it has changed and who we need to win back. And we need change organisationally as well. We need change in the way we run our party. Now, New Labour was formed 16 years ago in 1994. It was right for its time, but its time has gone. And the challenge for us in this election is whether we remain stuck in the New Labour comfort zone or whether we move on. And I want to talk to you today about how we need to move on. First of all, we need to move on ideologically. Tony Blair told us at the 1994 conference, his first speech as Labour Party leader, that our values were right, but our policies had become outdated. He was right. He told us also, and he was right about this, that we needed to appeal to all sections of society, that we needed to be a party that was for wealth creation as well as distribution, that we needed to be for economic efficiency and social justice. He was right about that. But that generation of politicians were a product of the 1980s. They were formed in response to Labour's failures. That was the time in which they came of age politically. And that meant that they became trapped by the ghosts of the 1980s. They became trapped in old orthodoxies. And exactly what they accused old Labour of happened to us. We found ourselves stuck in a certain pattern of thinking. We found ourselves with outdated ideas, the wrong policies, and we lost touch with people. That's why I think we lost the general election. Take 2 examples. Take the issue of markets in our society and the way that markets work. I think New Labour was right to embrace the idea that markets have a very important role to play in our society. But we were wrong, and we were trapped by the ghosts of the 1980s in implying that markets didn't have limits. So while we were talking about deregulation, the banks were spiralling out of control. And when small business people were saying to us, look, you own the banks now, as they did after 2008, why can't you do anything for us? We had no response. We were right to say that we should be for aspiration as a political party. That was correct. But somehow, we then got trapped in a dogma which left us defending bankers' bonuses because not to do so would be anti-aspiration. We were right to be a pro-business party. That was the right thing for us to do. But somehow that thinking got us trapped into saying we couldn't provide protection for agency workers and vulnerable workers in our society. And it also got us trapped into saying we should build new runways in London when young people were telling us, actually the world has changed. You're stuck in the 1980s. The environment matters more to us than new runways. And we didn't just get stuck in relation to markets. We got stuck in relation to the state too. Don't get me wrong, New Labour did great things using the power of the state. Apart from anything else, we saved our economy in 2008, and we should never forget that. But New Labour's view that what counts is what works also meant that we got stuck. We got stuck in a view about the state which became managerial, top-down, and overbearing. Managerial because a good idea, which was about targets and the need for certain entitlements for people, I'm afraid became a bad idea because it became a sense that Whitehall always knew best and that the front line had nothing to offer. A good idea which was not to tolerate inefficiency or low standards in public services, became again a bad idea, a sense that public servants were somehow always an obstacle to good public services. And also, after 2001 in particular, I feel personally that what happened to us was we became very casual about state power. We became casual about state power with 90 days and ID cards. And we've got to reclaim personal liberty for our party. So what happened to us, despite our great achievements, was that we became stuck in old ways of thinking. We were haunted by the ghosts of the 1980s, and we couldn't move on as a political party. And we have to move on at this leadership election. On our view about markets, on our view about the state, on our view about democracy, on our view about foreign policy. Because the only way we win back power is to move on. And that takes me to our analysis of why we lost and who we lost at the general election. Because there wasn't just a New Labour comfort zone when it came to policy, there was also a comfort zone when it came to the way we thought about the electorate. Because the challenge of the 1990s for Labour 1992 and 1997 was very different than the challenge for 2010 Labour. So you remember in the 1990s, we'd lost middle-class voters mainly to the Conservatives. The challenge for us now is a different challenge. We lost 5 million votes between 1997 and 2010. 4 million of them didn't go to the Conservatives. They went elsewhere. It was actually our less affluent voters who we lost more of than the more affluent voters, but we lost them as well. Now, I want to say something very clearly, because I kicked off a debate 10 days ago about what Labour's challenge was. And since then, different people have described this challenge in different ways. I said in that pamphlet that I wrote, Labour cannot win with its working class vote alone. New Labour was right about that. But nor can we take it for granted. And that's the comfort zone that we have to get out of. Because the problem at the election was that a lot of people who were seen as our core support, and frankly, that term has no usefulness for us now, that core support became the swing vote. And the swing vote thought that we weren't for them, thought we weren't going to make a difference to their lives, thought that actually we were out of touch with their concerns and their aspirations. And we also lost middle-class supporters as well, more affluent voters. Now, some of them went to the Liberal Democrats over issues like Iraq and civil liberties. In seats like Manchester-Withington, in Hornsey and Wood Green, we saw people leave us. But it's also the case that people went away from us, our affluent voters, for a whole range of reasons. I think people thought we weren't for their aspirations. We didn't understand their lives anymore. Because they were saying, well, actually, we feel financially squeezed, we feel hard-pressed. We don't think you're for us anymore. And they were also saying to us, we were worried about our kids, burdened down by university debt, struggling to get on the housing market, on the housing ladder when they graduate. So there's no false choice here to be made between winning back one part of our support or another. We need to win back our working class and our middle class support. But unless we get out of the New Labour comfort zone that says our working class vote will always be with us and will automatically vote for us, we won't win again next time. And then, organisationally, we need to change as well. And the person who's put this best to me is a Labour Party member called Nick, who I met in Cornwall. He said the problem is that you often gave the impression, he said, that the job of the leader of the Labour Party was to protect the country from the views of Labour Party members. Now, at times in our history, that was necessary. But 1985, when Neil Kinnock took on Militant, was 25 years ago. There are people in this room who weren't born then. Now, it's very, very important to say and to understand why we need that reconnection and that strong party. Because why did we become disconnected from the electorate? Part of the reason we became disconnected was because of a hollowing out of our party. You see, outward-looking parties actually connect politicians, the leadership, to the public. And we forgot that lesson. We got trapped in a comfort zone that said the way you win is despite your party, not because of it. Now look,
I disagree with members of our party on some issues. I'm not in favour of renationalisation of the utilities, and I'm clear about that. And there'll be some things that I'll do that the party won't like if I'm the leader of the party. But it's not naive, it's rational to say that actually we'd have been a better government, not a worse government, if we'd listened more on issues like housing and tuition fees and agency workers. And so we have to change. And we have to change as well because we have to understand the way political change happens. Because there's another New Labour comfort zone that we need to get out of. And that's the idea that the way change happens is simply through legislation or spending money or raising revenue. Of course, all of those things are important. But political change happens because people make it happen on the ground. The point of my living wage campaign, and we have 400 councillors around the country signed up as living wage advocates around this country, is that actually we should be the bearers of political change all around our country. Party members, trade unionists, green activists, community activists, we should be the home for all of those people as a political party. But in order to do that, we need to change. And it's not just about changing the technical or organisational structures of our party, it is about an attitude of mind. It is about an attitude of mind about the role of a party, the role of a political party and a movement in modern politics. That it isn't just top-down leadership, separate from your political party, but it is about leading a movement. So I'm saying to you today that we need big change. We need big change ideologically, we need big change in the way we think about the electorate, we need big change also in the way that we organise and run our party. But there's something else that has become apparent to me as I've gone around the country during this leadership campaign about the kind of change that we need as a political party. And that is about not the remoteness of politics from people's lives, because that is an issue. It's also about the smallness of our politics. You see, I actually think there are millions of people around this country who are yearning for something bigger in our politics. And what we see from this coalition government is an assault on many of the things that people value. But we also see a very small and narrow political vision. A vision which is reduced to simply a reduction of the deficit. Now, of course we need to reduce the deficit. But actually, after 1945, when we had the largest deficit in our history, the Labour government didn't say, well, it's all about reducing the deficit. They said we need a bigger vision of our society. We have an opportunity to reshape our society in new ways and to build the welfare state and the National Health Service. And we need that scale of ambition as a political party. We need to be the home of people across this country who can form a new progressive majority for Labour. But to do that, we need to change as well. We need to reclaim being the party of liberty and freedom again. Because we were the party that were formed on one of the most basic liberties and freedom, the right to join and form a trade union. We need to do all of these things. And I think if we do that, we can inspire millions of people across this country to join us. We can bring millions of people back to our cause. We can show that a refounded Labour Party on people's side can create the country we can be proud of. Let me just end on this point. There'll be lots of arguments as we go forward as a political party. There'll be debate and dialogue, and it's very, very important that debate and dialogue happens. But in the end, we've got to hold on to this very, very important fact, which is that actually our values are in tune with the values of the British people. We need to have confidence. We need to have confidence about our values. We need to have confidence that our values are mainstream values. Our values are values of Middle England. Our values are values that are shared across Britain. I think if we do that, we can create the kind of party we can be proud of, the kind of movement we can be proud of, and the kind of country we can be proud of too. Thank you very much.